All right, so I know that some of you have more challenging backgrounds that you need to retouch. So looking at this image here, this 9421 image, we've got some issues where we've got some texture on the background. Also, this poor pitch is really close to the glass. So we're going to need to analyze how we want to retouch this. First of all, we want to lighten the background out a bit and get rid of, lighten and soften the background to get rid of some of the texture. But at the same time, we want to have a good exposure on the glass. So that means that we're going to have to raw process this image twice, okay? Okay. So now the raw image is open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raw process this first for the brightness in the image. So I'm going to bring up the exposure and I'm going to bring the clarity down because the clarity, we want the fabric to be out of focus and soft. So I'm going to bring that clarity down on the fabric, which makes it a little bit softer. I'm going to bring the exposure up a little bit. And going to bring the contrast down, highlights down a bit because we don't want it so bright in the middle, and bring the whites down. Actually, just play with the whites a little bit. We don't want the center to be super bright, but we do want it to be, we do want the fabric to be soft. And at this time, you might want to adjust your tint. Whatever you adjust your tint here needs to be done also the same for your second one. So as I want to make my water maybe a little more blue, so I'm going to do 4,400 on my temperature and plus 20 on my tint. Okay, so I'm going to note that because I'm going to need to make sure I adjust that the second time I raw process this the same way. I still have a little bit of texture, but that's okay. We will retouch that out. So I'm going to go ahead and open. And I'm going to name this file save as. I'm going to save it in my documents. So let's go to my documents. And go to my documents, go to my digital photo file. Digital photo 1. I'm going to, you're going to find your folder that you're keeping your images in. I'm going to save that in there, okay? All right, so now I'm going to go back in and open my raw image, which I happen to have in my downloads right now. So I'm just going to go and find my raw image. Image 94. There it is, right here. And open that again. And this time, okay, so it opens at the same temperature and the same tint. So I'm not going to change that. I'm going to leave that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my clarity up because I want my glass to be nice and sharp. So I'm going to bring my clarity up. I'm going to bring my vibrance up, my saturation up. I'm going to make sure my exposure on the glass is correct. Bring down the blacks a little bit and just make those blacks pop a little bit on the glass. The vibrance up and bring my contrast up a little bit. And now I'm going to open that up. Okay. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a select all, edit, copy, and then I'm going to go back to my original image and do a edit, paste. Okay, and now I'm going to put in my layer mask here, and I'm going to blend these two layers together using my brush tool here. What I'm going to do initially is I'm just going to put this in at 100%, okay? So I'm just going to just completely remove all of this layer mask here and make my layer mask just go completely black, okay? Let's see here. Okay. And now I'm going to reverse this. Okay. I am going to reverse this. And I'm going to take out the first layer. I'm going to remove this so that I have just the nice exposure of just the water and the glass. As you notice, I definitely zoomed in closer on this. Okay. So now, if I turn off that layer, you can see on and off, you can see that my glass is now sharp, okay? Alrighty. So I'm actually going to duplicate this background layer. I'm going to duplicate that layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select layer 1 and select the copied layer, and I'm going to merge these layers together. Okay. Selecting both layers, and I'm going to merge these layers, leaving that first initial layer underneath that, okay? All right, so now I'm going to add in a vignette. I'm going to see what happens when I add in like a white vignette here. Go on my layer mask, and I'm going to slowly take this off just to see what happens. I'm thinking I'm going to actually change the tone of this, so I'm going to double click on my vignette layer, and I'm going to actually kind of make it like maybe a kind of a gray tone possibly. I'm gonna play with the color a little more. So I'm going to go in with this brush here. I'm going to select my vignette again. And I'm going to take it off. But I'm going to put it back on again because I don't know if I like the way that looks. So I'm going to do kind of like a gray, possibly a gray vignette, but I'm not totally sure yet. So I'm going to turn my opacity down really low to like 25%, and I'm going to start kind of blending this out a little bit just so that it kind of, and I'm going to leave a little bit of the picture. Let's go Control Plus, let's look at that. I'm going to leave a little bit of the picture. And let's back out on that. And let's adjust the vignette color a little more. No, it's not working. I don't want it darker. I definitely don't want it lighter. I'm going to come in and select some different tones in here, some different value tones. You definitely need to experiment with this to see what's going to work and what's not. I could put more of the vignette back in if I wanted to. Let's see here. I'm going to go in with a smaller brush and just make sure my glass is nice. So it goes from like a white to like a gray. But I'm noticing a little bit of a darker gray here, so I don't want that. So I'm going to like bring this lighter gray back again and just kind of bring it around. I'm going to try bringing my opacity down and see what happens. So that's at 100%. So lower opacity. Just to see what happens when I bring my opacity down. Let's zoom in here really close on this. I'm thinking I might remove the gray just from the glass. I'm going to bring this down like this and see what happens if I take it off. Just the glass possibly. I'll just kind of blend it here a little bit. Let's zoom in on that and just really look at that closely to make sure that looks okay on the corner. So you can see that I'm kind of, I'm playing with this blending on the vignette. I'm kind of going back and forth, changing my brush size, making sure I have a low opacity, maybe taking some of it out, putting some of it back in, and just carefully kind of blending between the two. So let's see what happens if I make this a little darker here. Blend out. I'm going to switch that around, make my brush a little more larger, and I'm going to add some of that vignette back again. Zoom in, look at that a little closely to make sure I like the way that looks. Okay, I'm going back in and kind of removing some of the vignette again. Okay, zoom out. We've got a little bit of the picture here showing. Do I want more? Let's see what happens if I kind of remove some of that vignette here just from the picture. See how it's not really blending very nicely there? I'm gonna have to step back, go to Window, History. I'm gonna step back just a little bit. I might need to bring my opacity down even lower and then kind of like carefully blend it out even a little more here. And then I'm going to zoom out to see how that looks. Not sure if I like that. So I'm going to put it back in. So I reverse these. I'm going to put that back in again. Just kind of zoom out. It's really, you just got to carefully look at it and okay, so that's one way. Another way to do this is to go in on the layer, on layer 1 here where you merged the layers together and use the cloning tool to clean this up a little bit, like down here on the corner, so I can make kind of a bigger brush here. Make sure my opacity is really low. And kind of like clean some of this out here, just kind of smooth this out, extend this out a little bit. Let's zoom out on that really quick. Make sure my opacity is even lower. I'm just going to keep kind of cleaning up the texture here a little bit. Going back in with the vignette. The brush. could expand this out a little more and make it a little bigger vignette. I could even adjust the color on the vignette a little more. Just kind of blend this here a little more. Okay. All right. Well, having this picture here, I don't really like. I wouldn't suggest having a picture in a shot because there's a lot of stuff you have to clean up on it. This is one way to think about merging two difficult images together. So look at your images and apply these techniques.